Hey guys, what's going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent, and I've tried to record this video a couple of different times, but, you know, I don't like using scripts. I just like to say what's on my heart, but each time I've kind of evolved it just a little bit. So hopefully this time I won't use as much jargon. Hopefully it'll be more surface level, and we can kind of explain this to all the dudes here, or even some who are just getting into the genre of MMOs. But you clicked on the topic, you know what we're talking about. That title is MMOs. They're easy? Are MMOs, the modern MMO, is it too casual? Is it too easy? And that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm sure some of you guys have already started typing before you even heard me talking, but I promise you might want to hear my perspective, because that's the point of the video, is my opinion here. And I am going to kind of flip everything upside down and tell you, yeah, I know we do this normally, but I'm going to tell you the opposite of what you might hear a lot of on the internet and what you might even feel inside your heart, and tell you that modern MMOs might be more challenging, much more challenging, depends on the game, than older games. So immediately, I just want to say this isn't just about MMOs. It can actually spread. You hear this a lot about modern esport titles, you know, like, oh man, League of Legends is for kids. Well, I think immediately those who do play League of Legends, if you want to just kind of parallel this to MMO, if you play League of Legends because it's a competitive game, even though it's easy to use the characters, it's easy to learn to an extent, you know that it's still the most competitive game in the world. Why is that? Because it has competitive mechanics. And the same thing is going to be said about modern MMOs. You know, a lot of people really just want to say, they want to say like, man, I wish arena shooters were brought back. I wish arena RTS would be brought back. I wish old school MMOs would be brought back. But the thing is that those games are actually pretty simple. You know, if we actually look at the reiterations over the years of a lot of these MMO, we see that it's kind of just the same thing over and over again. And after all this time, we've kind of learned, you know, by now how to really play those kind of games. They're actually very surface level. If you go back and play some of these games, yes, you could say, depending on your definition of difficulty, that it took more time and effort. And they kind of combine the two. In my opinion, just because something takes a lot of time doesn't mean it's an achievement of any kind. An achievement to me is like, okay, on Dark Souls, if I died like 100 times to a boss and I finally killed the boss, that's an achievement. But if you play like an MMO or an RPG and you grind for 100 hours and then you finally just one-shot the boss, that's not an achievement. That's not the same thing. And so immediately, my perspective is going to be different from you guys's. A lot of people are going to feel differently, but that's just my definition of difficulty. I don't think something that takes a lot of time means it took a lot of effort. That's not quite the same thing to me. So immediately you're going to go back to these older MMOs and you're going to start to see that, well, a lot of them were just kind of really grindy and very slow paced. In fact, they also had a lot of very limiting factors to them to where you couldn't just run through something. So for example, like in the new modern game Guild Wars 2, I can literally as a warrior just run through areas because I'm so mobile, but it's because I'm using my creativity and, you know, I'm using these special build or whatever to be very mobile, that I can just run through areas, rush to a certain objective or whatever, do it, and then get out. And that's my playstyle, and that kind of works, and it's fun, but it's not exactly hard. I'm not running through 100 monsters and, you know, going berserk, and I don't have like a million buttons I'm pressing to kill each and every monster or anything like that. I'm literally just sprinting past, or jumping past, or leaping past, or blinking, or whatever, you know, depends on your class and depends on the game, but a lot of these modern games give you a lot of choices on how to tackle a problem, and with more solutions, generally a riddle or a puzzle becomes easier. But it's not, I want to bring this new perspective here now that we're kind of hopefully on the same page here of understanding that it's not always about being easy, if that makes sense. Modern games kind of know, and they're very aware that they're a game and they're going to be gamified. They are going to be beaten. And if you think you can't beat an MMO, then you're already completely lost on where we're coming from. You can have different win conditions for MMOs. There are guilds out there who attempt to, you know, bunny ears beat MMOs. They attempt to be, you know, number one on the leaderboard on some metric somehow, first down bosses, or be the highest, you know, territory count in the PvP. So one way or another, there are ways to actually achieve stuff inside of MMOs or beat MMOs. And this strive for, I guess, it's not really completion, but it's really more for efficiency. That's kind of the difference. See, a lot of people look back to older games like Ultima and old school RuneScape, where if you die, there's a huge punishment. And they look to that and they think, oh, that's difficulty. That's true challenge. And there is challenge with that. And that kind of gameplay can be fun. You know, I got a little taste of that in Darkfall and Albion Online as newer games. But we look at these old games and we just see that time sink and we see that punishment as, well, that just means they're harder. But what if I were to tell you that it's not just about losing? What if I told you that a game could actually be really challenging, but at the same time, you would never lose? See, there are actually games out there like that. There are tons of them, even. There are games that you literally can't lose, but you can still speedrun it. You can still always do something more efficient. And so that's why I want to kind of, I guess, spotlight a game called Black Desert Online, which is something that I definitely complained about. I wish it was more difficult in certain aspects, but overall, it actually is a very challenging and very competitive game. In fact, so much so that if you really listen to reviews in between the lines, they basically say you won't ever compete. Like, it is so competitive. You need to play the game so hard, so ridiculous. You need to know every little thing about the game to really become part of that 1%. And by now, it's kind of debatable if you really could ever catch up. But regardless, Black Desert Online is a game that you can kill swaths of enemies. Look back at old school RuneScape, it's going to take you a minute, especially in the early levels, to kill anything. You're going to hit a lot of zeros, a lot of RNG. You don't have much choice. You don't have much freedom to do much else other than click, and then there you go. But you can say the challenge in RuneScape is that it's about preparation. It's about, strategy. You got a lot of puzzles even to solve with a lot of the quests. And that's cool. Yeah, that's true. And I wish more games did that. But we need to focus the conversation on those specific mechanics to be proactive with our arguments with this discussion. Because if we look at modern MMOs, so like Black Desert Online, and you just say, well, BDO is easy, you're going to get a lot of people really freaking butthurt. And because you're kind of inaccurate, the game as a whole is not easy. It is easy to fight monsters, but it is not an easy game. As a whole, it is a very competitive game. Sure, you can kill monsters over and over and over again, but how efficient are you? Why is it that this other person is getting 3 times more gold than you? What's up with that? And then he's going to accelerate level faster than you, have better gear than you, and overall his guild might be a little bit better off versus your guild. And then when you guys fight the guild v guild, what's going to happen now? You can also, look at BDO and realize it's also a PvP game, and its PvP is off the charts insanity. I can't even comprehend it. It is a very challenging game when it comes to PvP. So you also have to remember it's a PvEVP game. So just because you're killing swaths of enemies doesn't mean you're being as efficient as you could be, and it doesn't mean that you're going to be surviving as well because it's PvP, it's open world. Somebody can wreck you and then they can go on their merry way and actually do some real grind. What you were doing previously was kind of child's play. So if you look at that, then you might have a better time with that perspective. It's not always about losing, but it's about how much can you win. And that way, modern MMOs are actually very challenging because they have new social, it's a kind of a new social environment as a whole, but they do have some certain mechanics that make, yes, more intuitive, dungeon finder, stuff like that. Sure, it's easier to get into the game and to do the game, but just the leveling process for modern games is kind of the tutorial. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I don't know, but when you actually get to the end game and you're really trying to beat the game, I would debate that these kind of games actually truly are more challenging because there's a lot more things to literally challenge. There's more ways to play the game, there's more things to challenge, there's more things to achieve. So yeah, I know I've been talking a mile a minute. It's just something I get a little bit passionate about, but I just see this a lot. A lot of people playing MMOs, and they just kind of gripe that, oh man, this game is so easy, but they're not really playing the game. And that's kind of unfair to say, I know, that everyone plays their game differently, but at the same time, it's kind of unfair that they don't assume that as well. They don't assume that there's a different way to play these games, that there's more to the game than what they're just being force-fed. And I think that's funny because they literally are tired of games force-feeding them. They're like, oh man, this game, it holds my hand the whole way, and yet they are literally expecting all the content to be shoveled in their mouth and their eyeballs and their earballs. But no, a lot of the content of these games is hidden. It's extra. It's kind of not even inside the game. It's what you can do extra. So how did I come to this new perspective? Hopefully this also will show you maybe how you can get to where I am. And that's mainly going to be with the genre of action RPG. I don't know if you played a lot of these. I used to play stuff like Dynasty Warriors back in the day. Of course, you have Diablo, namely Path of Exile, Warframe. These are the two big ones right now. These are two games that you can play, and it's not hard exactly. You're gonna kill tons of enemies. In fact, with Warframe, you're gonna just be running through levels, and it's not terribly difficult a lot of the times in terms of like mechanical challenge, but it's not always about losing. So you have Path of Exile, where it's mainly about preparation. It's about preparing, it's about planning, it's about strategy. And yes, you're gonna run through 99% of the game until, if you literally were just trying to run through the game and you weren't paying attention, then eventually you will get slapped down. You will get one shot because you were not prepared. That is something that's going to punch you in the gut. So if you play those kind of games, yeah, you kill lots of enemies, kill hordes of enemies. But if you directly compare certain games with others, even though they look the same, seemingly they play the same, under the hood, you cannot assume that. Under the hood, with modern games, with all these social features that everyone hates apparently, no, that's just to make the game more intuitive and easier to get into, to really show you the real game. But the truth is a lot of you guys quit these games before you even give them a chance. And that's coming from me when I jump from MMO to MMO. But it's maybe because I do that I can see that all these games under the hood actually are different, even if they look the same cosmetically, mechanically. You know, you're like, oh, it's just, you just press 1 through 10, easy peasy. It's not always about just getting through content. It's how well you can get through that content, what you can do to push the boundaries after you've completed that. How far can you go as a player? Because you kind of, in a way, are the content of the MMO, and you should be competing with other people that are playing these games. So if you're complaining that MMO don't have challenge, it's because you're not challenging the MMO. But yeah, I mean, that's just my perspective. That's my definitions of difficulty. That's, you know, my opinion. That's what I got to say. Hopefully you can tell me in the comments below. I would like that a little bit. Thanks, guys. Much love. See you in the next one.